for the talk. We are really honored here. Uh, Dr. M. Ali Sahab. MPhil actually, that's stated by Sir is mankind. I am really impressed to see, call him as Shri M, as chaired by this, honorable ladies who are here, Mohini Kant, Noon, madam is also here with us. So we are really delighted and welcome you all. And I am really overwhelmed to you have Mr. Ali here for a wonderful talk, which is the topic is yoga, the dynamic science of living. Yoga, as I have experienced myself for 1 year, I was in Mauritius for a period of 4 years, and we were having classes in yoga as well. And it was personally experienced that yoga has changed the life of human. It really creates a miracle in the inner consciousness of human mind, in fact. So not to taking too much time, I just would like to hand over the mic to the chairperson, Ms. Noon, to introduce about Professor M and towards his lecture as well. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, and nice to see everyone here. And I welcome Shri M. Can you hear me, or is okay? He's a renowned yogi who's here for International Yoga Day, which is of course tomorrow, when the Indian High Commission is hosting an event at the House of Commons. And this too is hosted by the High Commission. So I thank the director, Mr. Srinivas, go through the program assistant Archana, who's not here, and Mr. Bahare. Shri M travels the globe to share the gifts of spirituality and yoga, which are unique contributions to the world. He's written several books on Upanishads, Hinduism, and Vedanta, which I'm sure many of you have read his autobiography. But I don't know if everyone knows that he recently published a novel called titled Shunya. And the protagonist of the novel is an avaduta, an enlightened being. And Dr. Karan Singh said that Sri M reveals himself in the pages of the novel. And I recommend you read it. It's available on Amazon. He has created a unique thing called Walk of Hope for Communal Harmony, and he walked up the length of India over 16 months and 7,500 kilometers in 2015-16. So now on Saturday, he's leading a Walk of Hope in Edinburgh, but it's not going to take 16 months, but only one day. And I don't think we could walk for 16 months on this island without hitting the sea. And as Mr. Ware said that, he's elected to be known as Shri M. And later some respectful friends added the Shri. And he said that sounds better than Mr. M, which is to James Bond. And I think you've seen glimpses of his journey, and his autobiography reveals a lot about some of the most esoteric knowledge of India's unbroken lineage of yogis stretching back to times immemorial. And he lived in Himalayan caves with his guru, Babaji Maheshwarnath, and even traveled secretly to Tibet. But he was told to return to the plains and lead a normal life, because then he would understand the predicament of people who are struggling in the world. And his wife Sunanda is the director of the People Grove School and the other educational projects, and their 2 children are also married. So he leads by example. That is possible to simultaneously live in the world and gain spiritual attainment. There'll be a short question and answer session after his talk, which written questions are invited. So I think there should be some, please hand it in. Maybe you'll arrange something to collect the questions. And we are lucky that he's with us today, so I'll hand you over to him without much ado.
अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनं शलाकया चक्षुरुमिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। You can't start anything without Guru Vandana, moving down to the Guru. Because whatever I have here or wherever, and which you are able to hear today, I am going to talk to you and reproduce, is because of the gracious hand of Maheshwarnath Babaji that was laid on my head at the age of 9. So every time before I start anything, I would like to do the Guru Vandana, and that's what I did just now. Now the topic today is yoga. I had it in my pocket, I forgot. Yoga, the dynamic science of living. So that's what it is. So first of all, I'm sure there are some question answers, but first of all, let's look at the words yoga, life, and dynamics. These are the three things put together. Yoga, the dynamic science of living. So first we need to rule out that yoga is not a passive state. It's not a state which is resorted to by lazy people who don't want to do anything else. It's actually a super active state, but action in tranquility and quietness of mind without agitation. So, this is what we are going to discuss today. I will come to the practical aspects, not that we are going to do the head down posture here, but we'll come to the practical aspects of it at the end. But, sorry to greet you, ladies and gentlemen, and the High Commission representative, and Lady Mohini who introduced me, and all of you who are here, good friends, sisters, brothers, everybody. So what did I say? Yeah. So first we will deal with something which is around maybe 1,000 years old before we go to the practical aspects of yoga as it is today. But what I'm trying to say is that even 1,000 years ago, yoga was a dynamic practice. It was not something meant for people just sitting in the caves and meditate. It's not like sometimes young men come to me and say, I want to give up all work. What's your age? 26. I want to give up everything. Why? Because I want to practice yoga. I tell them, listen, yoga is not meant for somebody who has lost his job or who doesn't want to work. Yoga is a state of mind which is to be cultivated. We'll come to that. So anyway, 1,000 years ago, I don't know, there is a lot of historical discussion on this. Some people say 800, some say 1,000. It doesn't matter really. There was this wonderful book. Well, it's considered a scripture. When you go to study the science of Vedanta, there is what is called the Prasthanatraya, which means the three important curriculum to be mastered, of which one, of course, is the Upanishads. Then there is the Brahma Sutras, and in the middle comes the Bhagavad Gita. Now the importance is, Upanishads are abstract. Actually not so abstract, but we have been made to believe that they are too abstract and not for ordinary. It's not true. They're actually very direct. There may be some Upanishads which are, but generally. Now the Brahma Sutras are really abstract. What happens to a work which begins by saying, now let us look into the Brahman? I mean, first you don't know what is the Brahman, where do we start, what do we do? However, the Bhagavad Gita, which comes in the middle, thinking of something in the tea. This is a particular text authored by Vedavyasa, in which is the famous battle of Kurukshetra, and how the message of yoga, if you ask me, is Gita yoga? I would say yes. I can quote Gita for you. At the end of every chapter of the Gita, Vyasa says, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So this is the Bhagavad Gita. Upanishatsu, it is the knowledge of the Upanishad. Yoga Shastre, it is the practice of the yoga or the practice of the techniques called yoga. Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvad, a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. So, the Bhagavad Gita can be, by its own declaration, considered to be a good textbook for yoga. So, Yoga Shastri. So now, just think of where the Gita was supposed to have been preached. People always ask, is it possible to preach something in the middle of a battle? Well, you can say that Vyasa did it in such a way that you understand that yoga is worth practicing only if you can practice it in the middle of the battle of life. We all have some battles, right? Outside, at home, with the taxi, with the cab. We have our little battles and our bigger battles, political battles, philosophical battles. We have this every time. So we live in this world which has two sides, two opposites. And because there are two sides, there is conflict. One pulling this way, the other pulling the other. So in the midst of this battle of Kurukshetra, is it possible to lead a life which can be considered yogic? This is the question. Not run away from it. In fact, if you read the Gita, in every chapter it is stressed. This yoga is not for him who stops all activity. This yoga is not for him who runs away from home. I did run away when I was young, that's a different story. Adventure. This yoga is not for him who shuns his duties or doesn't work and is lazy. This yoga is for him who is in the middle of the battlefield of life and yet knows how to handle it. This is stressed, you look any chapter of the Gita. But then since we are dealing with the Gita, I want to start with the first chapter. Now the first chapter of the Gita is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. You know what Vishada means? It means the sorrow of Arjuna, or the uncertainty of Arjuna, or the Sanskrit, when you say Vishada, it could mean many things. So it's an ancient language, more ancient than English, so you need more words to describe that word. Although the fact remains that the best and the first dictionary of Sanskrit into English was written by a Britisher called Sir Monier Williams. It's still a classic. How he worked so hard and got it done, I don't know, but it is there for us. So anyway, even I refer sometimes. So here you have Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's dissatisfaction, discomfort, sorrow, insecurity, uncertainty. You can put all these things together. And therefore I say that it's for all of us. Because at some point of life or another, we are in that state of indecisiveness, insecurity. Sometimes, we are overburdened with sorrow. And there sits Arjuna asking Krishna, now what do I do? Do I run away from the battle? Or do I understand myself so that I know what to do and what not to do actually? First he says, I'm going to run away. And Krishna says to him, what's gone wrong with you? You were okay till the last minute. This is fear that you might fail that is stopping you, not anything else. Don't think you're on a moral high. are afraid that you might lose and become and shamed by losing the battle, which is why you're thinking of running away from this. Now, this is the same with life. Consider the Kurukshetra war. Well, Kurukshetra war might have happened. I'm not talking about that. But we have this daily Kurukshetra going on in our lives. And the way is not to run from it, but to face it. And therefore, the Gita is a message given by Krishna to Arjuna how to handle this battle and how to come out successful and perform perfectly in this battle, and at the same time allow the mind to go to the essence and core of one's consciousness. No, all our problems are because we don't touch that. We are satisfied with these little things. It's good to eat popcorn, but not too much. There are some more important things to be done in life. So anyway, so this is the teaching, starting with Arjuna's sorrow. Why Arjuna's sorrow? Because it's only when a little bit of sorrow strikes, even a little bit, that human beings begin to question life. If everything was hunky-dory, nobody would question life. You'll carry on. Have your ice cream, go to sleep. You're okay, happy, fine. But when sorrow strikes you in some way, which is inevitable, it can happen at any time to anybody, then you begin to call on God, call on the Guru, call, the whole thing. What to do now? Please help me. I get about 200, 300, 400 emails every day saying what to do. So do what you should be doing. I mean, what else can I say? Anyway, so this is the story of the Gita. And as it progresses, the next chapter is Sankhya Yoga, which means the description of knowledge. Then Karma Yoga, which means how to live in this world and still not get caught up by it. Because if you get caught up by it, then this life becomes worthless. It's terrible. So can you live, you do your work and not get caught up in this, what in Hindi we call the chakkar. Don't get fasad in the chakkar, but still continue to live in this world and do your work. If yoga was something other than this, it's not worth it, because we cannot escape. We cannot go off to the cave. We cannot live away from society. We have to live here. So living here, how is it possible? What is the knowledge required? That's called the Sankhya Yoga. And how to apply it to your daily life is Karma Yoga. And then from there it goes on to other chapters like Dhyana Yoga, which is how to meditate, and so on. Now, since we are on this subject, I'll come back to now. But then, like yesterday, somebody said, now is a result of yesterday. You can discard yesterday as a memory, but it's still, today is a product of yesterday. So since we are in the past with the Gita, what we are today may be a result of this past in some way. So, before we again come to the present, let me again deal a little more with the Gita. Now, there are beautiful chapters in the Gita. Some of them are really, you should read it. Fortunately, you have English translations. Fortunately, because nowadays nobody reads Sanskrit. If you are a Sanskrit scholar, you're probably assured of not getting a job. That's the situation. And in India, it's been completely neglected. It's coming up slowly, but it's been neglected. And in fact, when I went to Germany, I found that the University of Berlin has 2 chairs for Sanskrit with 2 professors sitting there who are not Indians, but Germans, fluently conversing in Sanskrit. I was a little taken aback. But we don't have, so depend on the translations, my dear friends from India. So, as you go along, one of the chapters which would be interesting to you from the practical point of view of day-to-day life would be the Dhyana Yoga chapter on meditation. And then the other, which interests me the most, is the 12th chapter called Bhakti Yoga. There's a it's very interesting. This is where yoga moves from daily work and how to remain working and at the same time not getting caught, to how to go deeper into the core of your consciousness and expand. How to tap the infinite potential that's in all of us. In a small way, when I live my life, I actually feel this happening. Because to be honest, today, for instance, even though yesterday morning I knew what the talk was, I forgot. I came in. It's not a good thing, of course. But then you don't need it. Because if your mind is clear, like a clean slate, then concentrate on the subject at hand and what you need will come inside. Which means, what I'm trying to say, that there is a vast potential of all kinds in our consciousness. We've not tapped it because we use a limited part of our brains. And the science of yoga is how to explore the larger horizons, how to tap that parts of your system by which you can reach out to the infinite potential. You may not become the infinite, but you can certainly reach out to parts of that infinite. Okay. So, the 12th chapter. I love the 12th chapter because some people think it's a chapter meant for simple folk who don't have any knowledge and so on. Bhakti yoga. Because when you hear bhakti, people think, oh, this is for simpletons, not for serious people. Because the yoga of devotion. But that's not so. The reason why Krishna in the Gita, or maybe Vedavyasa, if you don't want to think Krishna was sitting there, then Vedavyasa, waits till the 12th chapter to talk about devotion. Why couldn't he have said that in the beginning if it's so important? The reason is, first, one wakes up only when one has sorrow, like Arjuna has, and insecurity. And two, because till chapter 10 and 11, everything is like Krishna talks, Arjuna listens, and so on and so forth. Arjuna asks questions, Krishna answers them. Arjuna is sitting on the chariot, Krishna sits with the reins of the horses in his hands. So it's all quite normal, like you're sitting here and I'm talking to you. Then suddenly, in chapter 10, Krishna changes the record. Changes we had these old LPs. So one side is one thing, the other side. So he changes the record and comes to the other side. And then Arjuna for some time is confounded because this man, who is also his friend and is a relative and who is his charioteer, imagine I have a driver, a chauffeur who is driving me, and the chauffeur, good chauffeur, let's say, and the chauffeur suddenly turns around and says, you know who I am? I am the sun. I'd probably get out of the car and run off. Because you don't know where he's going to take us. But suddenly, in the 10th chapter, Krishna says to Arjuna, things which Arjuna never thought could be said by this figure sitting here in front with the reins of the horses in his hand. He says, among the immovables, I am the Himalayas. You know the word Hima means snow. And Alaya means house of snow. It also called Himachala, which means the immovable snow-clad peaks. So he says, among the immovables, I am the Himachala. Achala means that which doesn't move, steady. Then he says, among the great munis, I am Kapila. And Arjuna is wondering, what's happened to this guy? Till now he was talking to me in normal terms, and then he suddenly says, among the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Among the mountains, I am the Meru, which is the North Pole. So what's happening here is slowly Krishna releases an element of surprise and confusion into Arjuna's mind, where he begins to question his ordinary logic. We have this normal logic, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It can't be other than that. Although we know now that as you go further up into advanced science, nothing is certain. But we like our certainty. When you study Newtonian physics, everything appears certain. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and so on and so forth, and then slowly, and everything is made up of atoms and so on. And then you go into quantum physics. Suddenly you come across something which is complete uncertainty. The tiniest building blocks of this world, of this universe, nobody knows today. All the certainty of Newtonian physics has vanished. Nobody knows today. It's not my opinion. I've met many physicists and talked to them. Whether the smallest building block, the quantum part, the quantum, I won't say particle, because the moment you say particle, it behaves like a wave. And if you think it's a wave, it behaves like a particle. Even some scientists have gone to the extent of saying it depends on the observer. Not completely accepted, of course. These physicists take a long time to accept, which is good. I'm not saying it's bad. But people like David Bohm, the physicist, have agreed that perhaps it depends on the observer. So the observer, who is subjective, becomes more important than that which is observed. So why did I say that? Sense of surprise, yeah. So Arjuna is made suddenly aware of the uncertainty of defining who is this guy sitting in front of me. Because you can't suddenly say, I am the Meru and I am the Himalayas and I am so and so. Okay. Then, while his so-called logical framework is being given a little shake, because our logical framework is based on only the inputs that come from our five sense organs. No other inputs are available to us. Anyway, we'll come to that later. So, while he is thinking about that, there comes the next chapter when Krishna suddenly changes his shape. And Arjuna sees many worlds coming into him and going out. He sees all the gods in him. He sees the kind of a thunder and lightning, and there is a lot of something. There is no more this Krishna who was playing the flute. There's something formidable in front of him. Then, at that time, his complete so-called rational um, design or blueprint which he had created till then vanishes. Then Krishna says, okay, so there is something which is beyond your ordinary logic. And that, the good news, Arjuna, is it is nowhere to be searched outside, it is inside you. Don't worry. You can find it in you. And if you find it in you, it can be found in anybody because you are not unique. As a human being, everybody has that which when touched is the essence of all being, which is universal, which has extensive and infinite potentials, although our limited brain may not be able to bring down everything from there, but at least something. And then it goes on to Sannyasa Yoga, which is the last chapter, where Krishna again defines sannyasa as not giving up and running away, but to be able to live without being affected by pleasure or pain, praise or blame, heat or cold. Now this is very interesting to note, This is coming slowly to the practical aspect. We live in this world, in this tumultuous world, so dependent on what others think about us. If I think I'm a wise man, suppose I don't. Suppose I think I'm a wise man, and somebody says he's a bloody fool, what happens to me? I'm down. And then somebody comes and no, don't worry, and praises me. Yesterday somebody told me, 5 hours somebody was criticizing. I felt so happy and thrilled. Because criticism shows what your problems are. And you should actually worship those who criticize. The gods come in human form to show you where you go wrong. Right? So, what happened? So why did I say that? Interact, please. Yes. So this is our life. We depend on what others think about ourselves. So we need to show off. I mean, no, I'm wise. I'm not a need. Because you don't know, our lives are up and down. What's that thing they have in circuses? Huh? Well, yeah. What is it called? Roller coaster. Our life is a roller coaster of ups and downs. When things are bad, I mean, when we think things are bad, nothing is bad really, then we are down. And we think things are rosy, we are up. So we live in this flux. The whole question of yoga is it possible to live in this world which is full of flux and still maintain your tranquility and your mind in peace without being affected by it? Actually, if you look carefully, it all depends on the wonderful framework that we have networked and created with language. Because what does it matter if somebody calls me a fool? If I don't know English, I don't know English. Somebody says, you're a fool. I say, yeah, okay. So, if I know only Hindi, I might think you're calling me a fool, flower. So you see how language has built this. Language is important. If I didn't know English, I can't communicate with you. Okay, agreed. Having said that, it can be applied where you want and not taken to limits of psychological dependence where you don't need it. So, like you know how people gravitate towards those who speak one language. I'm sure even here, when the talk is over and we go out, you'll see the Malayalam speaking in one group, the non-Malayalam speaking in one. So, the Hindi speaking in one group. Somebody says, Kemcho, Majama. So, it happens because we have languages. And languages are good, but they can also be detrimental to understanding in the sense they divide sometimes. So anyway, so if one can live in the midst of all this, understanding that it doesn't matter what other people think about you, you know what you are. Let's stay there. And if you have problems, if somebody criticizes you, accept it, because give it thought, because you might be able to repair the damage which has been caused to you till then. It's quite possible that you might figure out what to do now. So don't get upset. If one can live, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, you know, is always there. If you think of eat a lot of ice cream and you have a bad throat the next day, very simple. You have a lot of money and the income tax is knocking at your door. You say you have a beautiful wife and you have to be careful of your neighbor. Normal. So, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, heat and cold is a part of the world. You can't escape or run away from it. You can't say, I will always be like happy with no bad circumstance. Impossible. However, yoga is the secret of how to live in the midst of this and yet be happy and free and not get caught up by this roller coaster of depression and excitement. Excitement and depression are the major causes of blood pressure, BP. Look, I'm not boasting. I am now 69 years almost. People say I keep increasing every year, but 69, let's say. Till today, I personally, and I'm not taking any medicines, I don't have either high blood pressure. When I go, people give me tea and there should we put sugar in this, they might be thinking this guy must be having diabetes. Luckily, I don't. I'm okay. Now, there are two reasons for this. One is the practical aspect. We're coming to that now, from here to now. Try to live a life of moderation. Don't go into extremes. Neither too much nor too little. Gita, Krishna says in the Gita, this yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little. I can see my friends, some of them here, whom I had met many years ago, and who were very fit because they are working in the police. And now you see them, I know how much they must be eating, but the tummy is in front, 2 feet away. No work, no exercise, more food. So if you can control and moderate your life, neither too much nor too little. It's not easy, but it can come through practice. And abhyasa or practice is an important part of yoga. I'm talking about dynamic yoga, yoga for daily life. It's not just enough to stand on your head. That's not just yoga. That's the asanas, the postures, which are good, of course. I'm not denying that. But apart from that, there are other aspects of yoga which you have to look into. And that is first to understand the fact that apart from the conditioned reflexes and the conditioned thought process that we have created in our lives, there is an element in us which is free of all limitations. And if you can even in a small way tap into that, you have infinite potentials. I am saying this especially to the young. Old people, well, fuel is already mostly worked out, so we can't. But there are old people who are physically old but mentally young. I know people, I met yogis who are almost 100 years old. Talk to them, their brains, their minds, they're like 20-year-old, always curious to know what is new, always keeping their minds open to discussion. Now this kind of thing is possible in yoga. If yoga has to be dynamic, that's what we are looking for. Yoga shouldn't turn you into some kind of a zombie. That's not the aim of yoga. Yoga is when you want, you can sit and touch the core of your consciousness. And when you're outside the world, you can tap the potential that you have created by going deep within. And therefore, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali define yoga as yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, which means yoga is the stilling of the distractions of the mind. Stilling of the distractions of the mind stuff. When the distractions are stilled, first thing that happens, the first thing is that it is through distraction that you lose energy. A mind without distraction is full of energy. There is no loss. And what you are seeking, the essence of your being, needs a great deal of energy to explore. A distracted mind cannot explore it. So the training of yoga, even the asanas, the pranayam, the breathing, the meditation practices, everything is basically to make your mind tranquil and quiet at any given moment and survive in this world of ups and downs without being caught up in it, and therefore work very efficiently in this world. I don't know if you know that even now, I think I work almost 18, 19 hours. I'm just, people say you can say all this, but what is the proof? Here is the proof. Why am I traveling all around? What do I get? Why can't I stay in Madnapalli happily? Because my happiness is not dependent on Madnapalli. It's dependent on my inner self and state of being. And the good news is that all of you have the same. In all of you there is this core You may call it Atma, you may call it your mind, you may call it the core of it, you can use any term you like. But there is a potential in us which is not only tranquil, calm, blissful and quiet, but at the same time, it, which has tremendous potential, which can be tapped and made useful for this world at large. I'll give you an example. There was Swami Vivekananda. He passed away, he died at the age of, I said passed away because in India it's not good to say yogi died. Anyway, he passed away. And everybody dies, of course, but it's a nice way of putting it. Passed away. At the age of, I think, 39. In this 39 years, I think he had done work which would have been impossible for 1,000 people working for 100 years. Some people say he exhausted himself. I don't believe it. I think when he found this is enough for this time being, he vanished. He went. So, to conclude this talk, because we have a small question and answer session. One, yoga is not an exotic something which is confined to the caves and ashrams. Yoga is a day-to-day living, how to live in the world without excesses, in a balanced way. How to, while living in this world of ups and downs and pains and pleasures, how to keep your mind tranquil. And that when the mind is tranquil, then you touch the essence of your being. And the essence of your being is an infinite something with vast potential. Every time somebody does a thing which is extraordinary, it's simply that by accident or through deliberation, they have tapped a little bit of that potential from the essence. And finally, the good news is that is inside us. You don't have to search for it anywhere outside. In fact, somebody declared that it is nearer to you than your own jugular vein. You can call it Brahman, you can call it the Supreme Being, you can call it just like the Jains have no Ishvara, no God concept. They say Nirvana. Buddhists say Shunya. It's the same. Shunya is not nothing. It's that from which this whole world has come and which it goes back. So it can't be nothing. It may be no thing. Because there is an essence in us which cannot be detected by our five senses. And all the world that we have, I was just reading a book a friend gave me on neurotheology. He says, we don't know the world that we live in. We only know the impressions given to us by the sense organs and processed by the brain into an idea. We really don't know how something is. This is the world we live in. So can we live in the essence of it instead of getting caught up in the externals? And still be able to survive and function in this world. If you do that, I think every one of you can turn out to be some kind of a genius in some field. Even if you don't turn into a genius, you live a world of happiness and tranquility without interfering and stepping on other people's toes. You'll have a peaceful world. So, I rest my argument. Thank you. Thank you. I think those who have questions can be given a microphone. Sure. So that everybody can hear the question. If it is anything secret, then I won't discuss it. disturbance?
If this world is a dream, as it is said, how do we wake up from this dream?
Give me that, please. Now, this is a very philosophical, in-depth, speculative question. But then, since it's there, I don't know if I'm going to finish the question time with this. If you really are serious, let's go into this carefully. If this world is a dream, it's not actually practical yoga, but something to do with your understanding, which is important. If this world is, first of all, is it a dream? So somebody says, is this world a dream as it is referred? Referred where? Referred in some books, maybe. I didn't say that. Anyway, how do we wake up from this dream? Okay. Now let's examine this thing called dream. You know, while we are dreaming, I'm not talking about this world as a dream, our dreams, actual dreams, Swapna Avastha, the dream state. While we are dreaming, do we know that we are dreaming? I mean, rarely sometimes, but generally, while we are dreaming, there's a tiger chasing me. Do I know it's a dream? No, I'm running for my life. Right? And then when I wake up, I think, oh my God, this was a dream. And it was so real that I'm still palpitating and perspiring. Right? What would have happened if this dream continued for a longer time? I would still have been chased by a tiger or maybe eaten up by the tiger. When I wake up, I would